Hello and welcome to Clamp, the Creating, Living, and Making podcast. I'm your host, Morley Kurt, and joining me as always is Adam Mackey.
Yeah.
And Grant Alexander.
Hello.
What's doing, boys? How's everything going, Mr. Oh, I'm not going to go first. Grant, how is it going?
Well, it's going good. 4 weeks in a row. I released a video on the weekend. This was the last of the videos I think I'm going to release that are actual how-to videos from my camper project. And I released kind of a how-to redo your awning bag. So if anyone has like a pop-up trailer or a fiberglass trailer, it's the only two trailers I've ever really seen them on. They have these awnings that are like rolled up inside of a bag that stay on the side of your trailer. Now, a lot of them, because they're often seen on pop-ups because you can't have those bars on the side that allow you to just roll out the awning. So anyways, they're also on the fiberglass trailers, I've noticed a lot. But during this craziness that we're experiencing with supply chain issues and pandemics and whatever, you can't find a bag awning anywhere for less than like $2,000, which is insane because they're like $400 like normally. So instead of replacing my entire awning, because the aluminum's fine, the awning was fine, it was just the bag that was garbage, I sewed up a new bag and I released the video this week.
Nice. You brought that sentence to like an abrupt halt.
Yeah, I was full waiting for you to say something else.
I was going to say something else, but then I was just like, uh-oh, I've lost it. The other thing I've been up to is my windows have been leaking. So when I moved into this house many moons ago, like 9 years ago, I think, it had like part of the selling point is that it had this like sunroom, they called it. But really it was like part of the kitchen had ginormous windows. They're like 10 feet tall windows by 4 feet wide. And there's 6 of them that form the room, a patio door, and then 4 that form the roof. And I replaced 4 of them when I moved in because they had like the seals had gone on them. And when they did that, they were fooling around with the flashing to get the windows in place. And ever since then, I've been battling leaky issues. And last year I did a bunch of work trying to fix one side of it. And now it was leaking even worse this summer. And I just kept forgetting to fix it. The only time, it's like one of those things, the only time you think about doing it is when it's raining. And then you can't do it. It's raining. You go, crap, I needed to fix that stupid leaking window and reseal it. Like there's a bunch of silicone on there. There's obviously over time it needs to be replaced. But yeah, so I finally, before it gets too cold out, I finally fixed those leaky windows.
Cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
It's good not to have water coming into your house.
Yeah, agreed. I think in the spring I might just take like the top 4 windows out because we have them covered anyways because it's like way too much light. It's like one of those things that you think you want until you live with it. Once you live with it, you go, this is just too much. It looks beautiful, but then it's just too much light. It is like 5 to 10 degrees hotter on that side of the house because of those stupid windows. Anyways, I think I'm going to take the windows out or just like put something over top of them, like a regular roof over top of them.
I always wanted a like conservatory, but I feel like I would want it a detached building from the house, like not like a sunroom, but just like you go into the back garden and there's a insulated greenhouse that you could basically like a 4-season greenhouse that you could go have a little table to hang out in.
Yeah. So I think conservatory is what someone might call my area, but that's like something that Andy Pugh would call it, but I don't call it that because I don't know, not 50 or not British.
Yeah. Well, I think of it as something different.
Take that, like. Andy.
Anyways, Adam, what about you? What's been going on? Other than playing videos out of your phone when you're supposed to be talking.
I did not mean to do that. I looked at my phone and it unlocked itself, and a video I happened to be playing. I haven't really done much this week. I've just been going to the gym, eating good, trying to be a good little boy. Yeah. Yeah, I feel good. I feel feeling starting my fitness back. Challenge started, what's today's Thursday? Yeah, so it started on Monday, like 4 days ago.
Nice.
But because I got my scan last Thursday, challenge pretty much started for me last Thursday because it's like scan to scan, pretty much. Like,
okay.
They reference your first and last scan at the beginning and the end of the challenge. So if I don't start it on the Thursday, I'm pretty much hindering myself a few days.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, so pretty excited. I have finally decided like what I want to do for food and stuff. So probably tomorrow I'm going to go shopping and just cook up a massive 14 days worth of food. Do that every couple of weeks. Which will be fun.
Make sure you keep it nice and
Damn. Cool. Do you have this is a really in the weeds question, but do you have containers picked out that you're going to store all these meals in?
Yeah, so I went out and bought 28 containers. Because so the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to have I'm cook 2 meals per day, and then I'll cook lunch every day.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. Pretty much just meat and broccoli every day. Meat, broccoli, and cauliflower.
Crazy.
I love broccoli. It's one of my favorite vegetables.
Same.
I don't like broccoli.
Until you eat it every day, and then it gets a bit much.
Yeah. I feel like
I can't think of a single vegetable that I like.
Interesting.
If anyone has ever looked at me and couldn't have guessed that before it came out of my mouth.
I love frozen peas.
Wait, is barley
literally frozen
barley is
peas.
a grain.
Oh. Hops?
So that's beer.
Yeast?
Great, just starts listing the ingredients of beer.
I think yeast is further away from a vegetable than barley is. It's not. It doesn't even grow in the ground.
Well, corn's a vegetable, isn't it?
Wait.
And that doesn't grow in the ground.
Corn is biologically a vegetable, but nutritionally it's like a grain.
It's also very unhealthy for you.
I like potatoes.
You wouldn't eat it. Yeah, that's also not a vegetable.
Potatoes are a vegetable.
Again, biologically they are, but on the food pyramid, it's in the grain category. It's just carbs.
Yeah, but they're still a vegetable.
I guess so, but you wouldn't eat them in the same way that you do carrots or broccoli.
Some people do.
Anyways,
no, you would.
Have you never had? Yeah, my favorite vegetable is tomato.
Not even gonna touch that one. All right. Well, I put out the pumpkin formed concrete planter video, which is so I knew it would be a controversial video in that it looks a little rough. It's an experiment. It's not fully utilitarian, but it's always funny when you know that something might be controversial, but it always is in a way that you don't expect. So I had a lot of people that were very rightly so critical of the fact that I rinsed it out in the sink. And I realized pretty early on as I was rinsing it that this is probably bad. I put a tray down to catch it, but it's just it's funny how people get so fixated on these tiny details where it's yeah, that probably wasn't a good call, but not the point.
Do people realize that dirt and rocks go into storm drains, which are then filtered through the same plants as your sewer drains?
I think the concern was more around my home plumbing, of it getting caught in a U-bend and building up.
Oh, geez. That is stones are fine. Grease is a problem.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I should have fought back against these internet commenters then. I was just yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done that.
Well, you shouldn't have for environmental reasons, perhaps, but definitely not for that. The thing that I thought was controversial in your video is you trying to fruit ninja that thing in half with Eden holding it. I was so cringing.
That felt incredibly safe in person. And Eden's right here. Let me ask her. Eden, did that chopping of the pumpkin feel sketchy at all to you? 7 out of 10 sketchy or safe? Okay. Eden said it was 7 out of 10 sketchy, but I don't know. I felt very in control. Like if I'm chopping straight down, like I know where that knife is going to go. So suck it, internet.
So were you a Boy Scout?
No, I'm Jewish.
There's a zone of danger if you're holding a knife, and no one should be within the zone of danger. And it's your arm's length, and then you spin in circle. And no one should be in there.
Seems a little much for 2 functioning adults. I can understand how that would be a thing for like a 10-year-old boy, but I think I can handle it.
When you edited the video, did you not look at Eden's face? Because you shouldn't have even had to ask her if it was cringy by looking at her face.
Yeah. Anyways, it was I was very happy with the video. Like it was very fun to make, and especially making with her. I feel like whenever we do stuff together in a video, it's always like makes for a more fun process, and it was just a good time in general. So yeah, happy to have tried that experiment. And we also, Ryan and I, put out an episode of Into the Spotlight for the first time in like 3 months. Because both of us had like super busy summers. And yeah, we still did Clamp every week, but like adding another podcast on top of that, like I don't even think I like thought about Into the Spotlight. Like it was the thoughts that would come into my head during the summer was like, oh dang, we should really probably like find another guest. And I feel bad because I feel like I'm dropping the ball on Ryan, but come to find out that he was feeling the exact same way because he also like changed jobs and was writing a ton. But we're back at it. We put out an episode with Justin Ofler from Bare Naked, which was really fun. We just published it like as we're recording. And yeah, it was like, I don't know if you guys feel this, but if you're away from something for a while, you kind of start to dread it. Like the longer you put something off, the bigger it builds up in your head, which was kind of happening, but it was so nice to get back to doing it. Cause I feel like the conversations we have on that podcast, like are so motivating for me. Like just talking about like the creative process and like people's stories is like, it really wants me to like get going and just try creating different things. So I'm really excited to like start putting episodes out more regularly again. Maybe we'll actually get down to some sort of schedule. But yeah, that was nice to get back into, and he's moving back to Toronto, some point soon. I don't know, like within the next few months, which is pretty exciting because he's been out in Gaspé for the pandemic. In other news, I've been designing a project, which I think could be really cool, but it's still in a design phase. And that is a fully 3D printed razor knife. So it holds a razor blade. And yeah, I'm still designing it. I've carried out a couple tests, but I feel like it will work to a certain extent.
Is it going to be...
Yep, go on.
Are you going to be encapsulating the blade in it as you print? Like you print halfway, stop?
That's an interesting idea, but no. What I'm doing is it's like a replaceable blade. So you know how in a paint scraper, it has that mechanism where you slide in the blade? So it's the same sort of thing, but just 3D printed. So the whole frame will be printed and then you'll be able to replace the blades in it.
So it's not a 3D printed blade?
No, it's a 3D printed frame for the knife.
Right. I was wondering how you were going to get a sharp edge on a 3D print.
So it's interesting that you say that because I was trying to figure that out this summer when we did the polymer clay jewelry making with Sarah, and I 3D printed some clay cutters for the kids to use, basically like a cookie cutter. And I knew that she had gotten some 3D printed before because we had talked about it. And we were kind of tossing ideas back and forth and figuring out the best way it would work. So what I basically did when I made them was I did like a stepped profile. So it started out thick and then got thinner and then got thinner. So it wouldn't just be this long, thin edge that might crack. And it worked fine. But then when she came in person, she brought some of the 3D printed cutters that she had commissioned, and they were just a fully tapered profile. So it tapered to one filament thickness on the very top. And if you taper it like that, you can get to a much skinnier end. Because you can't 3D print a tower of single filaments. It doesn't work. So you technically could 3D print a sharp edge. It's just like, it's like a cake knife. It's not really going to cut through anything that puts up any bit of a fight.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but it's reminding me.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool. And like I've mentioned in the past, like I've been wanting to design some sort of like 3D printed like EDC item. And I think this could be like a good first project in that category. I think it's going to be like a satisfying little tool. It's reminding me in some ways of the Art Deco puzzle box, because I'm trying to basically like designing this entire mechanism virtually, and then I'm not going to do it all the way to 100%, but I'll print it and then kind of see if it works. So it's making me kind of draw on that like beginner's mindset that I had for that project, where it was like, I had an idea going into the puzzle box that like it would be something bigger than anything I attempted before in 3D printing. But like, you never know when you go into a project like that, how much work it's actually going to be. And it's good. It's nice to have that, like those blinders on when you go in to try something, because once you actually know how much work something is, it makes it a lot harder to actually do the project. And like, I've been wanting to make another bag or purse or backpack or something for a while out of leather. And like, it's really hard to get the motivation up to actually do it, because I made that purse like 3 years ago as like one of my first projects. Still, I think one of my best performing videos. So it's like the motivation is there to make another one. But after doing it, it's like, I know all the mistakes that I made, and I know how much work it is. And it's like, I know how much more there can be to it if you do it correctly. So there's now all these kind of barriers in place because I don't really have that beginner's mindset anymore around that project. But it's nice to be doing something totally new where it's like, yeah, I'm just going to try it and, print it, see what happens. And I think this will work. Like this whole 3D printed mechanism, we'll see.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. It is something that plagues me all the time. Just getting stuck. Like when I've done something once before, I feel like I learned. The learning curve was like super vertical, but at the same time, it was just very easy to just go, well, if I screw it up, it's okay. It was my first try. And for some reason, if it's my second try and I screw it up, I'm a failure. Right? Like I should have learned everything I needed to know off that first one. Right. And you learn so much. Like when I look at things that I've done for the first time, you just like, I know I'll look at them and see all the mistakes, but I know like part of why I don't like doing multiples of something is because I lose that beginner's mindset. I lose that like motivation that I'm not learning enough. I'm still learning, but it's like if you put it out of 100, like 100 is that expert level. You could do it perfectly every time. Like that first, when you go from 0 to 50 or 0 to 60 and you produce something, you've learned a lot, and there's diminishing returns on everyone. But at the same time, you worry each one of those points matters so much more on every subsequent project, right? Like trying, you care more about getting from 60 to 61 than you cared about getting from 0 to 60.
I've been finding that with all the CNC stuff, that like every time I learn something new of like how to design something in Fusion for the CNC, it builds up with like the next project and the next project, and it's not every project has an individual skill. It's just like it builds up sort of thing. And I don't know, I've been really enjoying that sort of like beginning on how to do all the CNC stuff, which has been really fun.
Yeah, it's a addictive feeling, like trying something for the first time. I think it's why a lot of us like trying new skills, because there's a certain like mystery around it. And it's like, Grant and I were talking about this like hand cranked leather sewing machine today, and I was watching this video and I was just daydreaming. I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine having this machine and being able to do that. Like that would be so cool. And imagining like something that you haven't yet done is like a really exciting feeling. So there's a huge amount of motivation to make it happen. But then once you've done it and kind of the mystique is no longer there, the motivation kind of not dries up a little bit, but it just can change forms. You know, it can be more about like getting better at something, which becomes a lot harder than doing it for the first time, because it a lot of times requires more investment and more time and more different techniques.
Well, so when thinking about the videos, so I made the planter box bench video. It's definitely like it's the video that made me monetize on YouTube. It's one of my favorite projects. I made it for my mom. I went into it with zero plan, with the power off, with a handsaw that was made for like cutting limbs off trees, right? Like not the right type of handsaw, nothing, every single thing that could possibly go wrong. Like a literal hurricane came through and knocked out the power. And I built this thing for my mom. And I couldn't, for whatever reason, there were so many things that went like wrong, and I just solved the issues in the time. I couldn't do it. Like I should just make another one. I'd like to make something similar for my house. And I can't bring myself to do it because I'm afraid of not solving all the mistakes I made. So I was okay with making mistakes on the first one, but the second one, I'm like, I needs to be perfect. And it's just like you, I've got motivation there. It's one of my best performing videos. Why not make another one or make something, similar but different, right? Obviously I wouldn't make the exact same thing and make another video of it, but
exactly the same but different.
Right. It's just a little bit different. It's not the same. This one's better. But like, why can't I? It's been 2 years. Why can't I do it?
I think like once you know that a certain project or process like will come with a lot of like mistakes or difficult times, you feel like you have to solve them in advance.
Right.
And one of the really like helpful things about trying to draw on that beginner's mindset is just letting yourself like realize that like there will be struggles and tough things, but trying not to let that stop you from doing it. And that's kind of like with this 3D printed razor knife, like what I'm thinking of, like I'm experienced enough now. And I feel like this is kind of like what experience does. Like I know this will be a time suck, and I know it's going to take like multiple levels of prototyping, and I'll print the first one and I'll test it out. And like the second I print it, I'll find an issue that, will make me immediately have to print another one. So like there's going to be wasted filament. Like there's going to be that time, but I'm trying not to let it really stop me, because it's like I feel like this could be like really cool. And
right. And for the first one, I agree. I think the big problem comes about in doing the second one. Right? That's how do I motivate myself to have that same beginner's mindset beyond my initial, like you've never made a 3D printed razor knife before.
Right.
Right. Or utility knife before. So it doesn't matter how many times you screw one up. You're going to be excited that you might be able to get to a finish. How do you do that for your next tool?
So if we stay on the planter box for a moment, so is the thing that you're kind of talking about is making another planter box and a video about making a planter box?
Maybe. Or another bench or something. Like there's like what I made. Yes. To answer your question, basically yes, but making it better.
So what would make you think, like if we're talking about motivation, right? Because we could say that video did really well, which I feel like is the motivation to do another. But what would make you think that doing like the exact same project would also do very well?
Well, so it wouldn't look the same.
Right.
Right. So if planter benches, there's not a lot of videos out there, but you could design them a lot of different ways. So that's like saying, if you design a chair, why would you ever design another chair? You've designed one.
Fair.
Never make another chair. Right? Like, so I think designing another planter bench or even planter boxes might be something that could do well on my channel, because I have people who get to the end of that one and say, oh, he's designed another one. Right? It still gets a lot of views to this day. So,
yeah, I was like I've been researching a lot of different beginner woodworking projects at work, like at the STEAM project, because I'm teaching this intro to woodworking class. So I'm trying to find projects that we're going to do in it. And I think I've kind of rounded up the catalog for now, at least. We'll see how long things take, but I think they'll take longer than I think they will. And
they always do.
So I'm kind of stumbling into like DIY subcultures that I don't normally find myself in. The whole like beginner woodworking projects and like easy things to do with your kids, which is a pretty big community. And you have a lot of channels, which is like not very high production quality or even very good videos for that matter, but they have a lot of content on like a single topic. And I'm scrolling through it. I'm like, oh, this is really nice to see like a lot of different options. And that sort of, you know, personality or channel is something where like doing the same thing in slightly different ways is really helpful. Like if you want to have that catalog of like, ooh, you could make a stool this way, or you could make like a little mini bookcase. That's basically the same process, but it's a different project.
I feel like that's what I'm going through with the CNC videos. Like the first one I put out and I got a lot of good sort of feedback for it. Like the tutorial videos, I mean, not the unboxing. And then I'm like, I'm going to keep playing on this, and I keep making more CNC tutorial videos, and every single one of them gets good engagement and pushes me further. I'm enjoying making them and all that sort of stuff. But like I'm essentially doing the same video over and over. It's just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. So, well, that's good too, because that's like sustainable. Like if you enjoy doing it and it doesn't have to be a crazy amount of work every time, then like that's awesome. Bob's your uncle, as some might say. Yeah.
And hot take with all of my tutorial videos so far, it's the first time I've ever done it. Like literally like the very first video that I put out, that was the first time I've designed something like that in Fusion. Like learned it as I went. I don't know how to use Fusion.
It's all about narrating it properly.
Yeah.
Because once you've done it, you can say how you did it.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's helping me, is because I've just learnt it. I'm in that mindset of how to show someone to do it that doesn't know what they're doing. Whereas if I'd been doing it for 20 years and was so professional at it, that I wouldn't understand like how I need to speak to someone that's just learning, if that makes sense.
I mean, that's a whole nother side of the beginner's mindset, right? It's like, it's thinking like a beginner, and a lot of times in teaching that can be like super helpful. And, you know, that's what I'm doing with these woodworking classes. It's like, I'll build the project the week before, or maybe like 2 weeks before, document everything, like make notes, like, no, don't do this thing first, do that thing first. This is what they have to look out for. And then I go into the class and I still have to be like, wait a minute, I need to dial this back like 10 levels, because you don't even know what inches are, because you learned centimeters in school. So first off, let's talk about inches and what a 16th of an inch is. So like, and I had the same experience when I was like TAing, like when I was being a teaching assistant for like our calculus classes at university. It's like, I had just learned most of this material, but it was super fresh in my head, and I knew the common roadblocks that people would come up against, and it made me a pretty good teacher for it, because it's right there in my memory.
And you also then become better at understand. Like you can't teach something you don't understand.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I've tried. I mean, I would say you can, and I did. And then as you're teaching it, you're like, oh, I understand this better. You could, because a lot. Okay, go on. It's a rabbit hole altogether.
Yeah, that's a whole different rabbit hole. I just one class in high school, I remember I got 100% on the class, and that was because I taught everyone around me. Every single person around me didn't understand what was happening, and I'd have to teach everyone. And that's how I was like, well, like I can't not know it now, right? Like it's, it was math, so it was one of those, like, there's a right answer. It's not like English where it's like, a teacher doesn't like you and he told you to kill yourself, so probably not a good answer there. So all that to say is that has nothing to do with beginner's mindset. No, it wasn't a flex. We talked about it before. It's a callback.
Wow. Sorry, there was so much lag just then because I said that about 3 minutes ago. Not that long. It was like 30 seconds ago.
Anyways, I don't know where I was going to go with this, but you were talking about teaching people and how that and learning things. And I think that's what I was trying to say at the beginning. You go from 0 to 60 so quickly. You learn so much that it motivates you so much to keep to just get through it. Just I'm learning so I can make mistakes. And I think this whole thing boils down to I have a fear of making mistakes, especially on a video that I put out. So I put out a video and people point out a whole bunch of mistakes. Like the one that I can think of the most is I took a hand plane to the edge of my door because it was sticking. And everyone's like, well, you shouldn't do that. You should just, you're going to make your door a parallelogram or something. And I was like, I don't care, right? Like, I don't care. But the comments still to this day, it's like the most negative comments I've gotten on my channel is everyone saying, don't take a hand plane to your door to take one corner off because it's sticking. Everyone said, like, redo your frame. And I'm like, I'm not redoing my frame of my door to take, like, not even a 16th of an inch off.
So these people clearly haven't seen a tradie hanging a door in a house or an office, because that's exactly what they do, but with an electric plane.
So this is what one of the guys who comments on my channel, Irish Chippy, he's got his own channel. He was one of the guys who went, I see all the other comments. If I was installing it, that's what I would do.
Yeah. I've literally seen people do it. Like, back when I used to do construction when I was in high school. Ow. I just punched my microphone. When I was in high school, I did construction for like 2.5 years. And like every single tradie did the same thing.
Right. It makes sense to me. I was like, I'm not taking, like, I get, you don't want to like fundamentally alter the size of your door, but if it's just touching, because especially it's like mainly because it's been painted 700 times, I'm just trying to take off the layers of paint. Anyways,
yeah.
I mean, and that's another like, evidence of like how the beginner's mindset can be super helpful, because you were doing it in a way that made sense to you, not in like the quote correct way or the way that a door mechanic would do it. I know that's not
exactly
facetious.
Yeah.
And that can a lot of times be super helpful, because, questioning like norms and standards is usually a good idea, because a lot of times they're not really based in anything other than the fact that that's the way people have been doing things. So when you try something,
that is my real life job, is questioning people and saying, why do you do this? Because that's the way we do it. And I say, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I do on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's very like useful and helpful and empowering. And I think once you're kind of more experienced in something, it's tough to kind of try not to get pigeonholed into a certain way of doing things. And I think a lot of times in trying to keep things fresh, for me, it's like rediscovering that beginner's mindset, but trying not to like throw out the baby with the bathwater of all the things I've learned in the process.
What kind of analogy is that?
You don't have that saying down in Oz?
No.
That must be a North American saying.
Yeah, right.
Do you understand what it means from the context?
Yeah, I understand what it means. I've just never heard it before.
Oh, wow.
I had a feeling as I was saying, I was like, I wonder if Adam's going to get this.
Oh, that just reminds me that, yeah, never mind. Go on.
So
you threw out your baby.
I think about it
earlier.
Yeah.
I think about when you're mentioning this topic, I think a lot about what Jimmy DeResta talks about when he talks about it. Just do the next step, right? Take a step in the direction. If you don't know what you're doing, just take it, right? And even if you think you know what you're doing, but you're like caught up on yourself and you're thinking it through too much, just do a step. It'll all start falling together. And I think that's a way to try and reintroduce the beginner's mindset, because when you're a beginner, you take the steps. You don't know where to go. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to fall down. No worries, right? Like when I watch it, it reminds me of my son trying things, right? He pushes all the buttons. You give him something with buttons, he presses all of the buttons. And my wife is like so concerned about pressing buttons. She doesn't press any buttons on anything. She never figures out how anything works. And I know she's going to listen to this, but she'll never figure. Like I'm like, we just press this button, this button, this button, then you press that one, and it all works. She's like, how did you figure it out? And I went, I pressed all the buttons. I remember when the first time on a computer, I literally found out F1 did something, so I pressed all of the all the function buttons.
I did that, yeah.
Right, because I'm like, well, what does F2 do? F1 brings up a help menu. What does F2 do?
Yeah, they say you're like, why the hell is Windows Help coming up?
Right.
But you take it back even further to like a baby with you can get those boxes where you put the different shapes in the top. There's the holes in the top.
Right.
They don't just pick up a circle and put it in the circle, and a square and put it in the square. They pick up the circle and they try and put it in all of them until it fits in the circle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this reminds me of a time my dad's friend named Dave. He was working on his motorcycle, his Harley, and he just couldn't get this bolt off. And he was trying everything, getting the wrench out, getting everything, right? And eventually his son comes along, who's my friend, and we're like 12 or 13 at the time. And he's like, could I try? And the guy's, he's a big, biker dude, right? Working on his Harley, and he's like, whatever, give it a shot. And he just turns it the other way. It was reverse threaded.
Yeah.
Right? Because he didn't know any better. He didn't know lefty, loosey, righty, tighty. He just grabbed it. It didn't turn one way, or turn it the other way, and it undid it. And that's exactly that. I think is like, I don't know. That was like a thing of like beauty to me to hear about this, confident construction worker Harley guy can't get his bolt undone, and his son comes along and just bloop.
Oh, okay. I think. Did I know I muted myself. We're good.
Yeah, just
so I think one like maybe con to the beginner's mindset is that it doesn't really take strategy into account. So I love the mindset of like, take one, just do the next thing. Like when you're stuck, just like do the next step, just get started, which is great. It's a great way to get motivated. But I found myself in the past when I'm doing things in that way, it can kind of get me to lose sight of like a larger goal. It's like I'm just doing this series of projects that aren't really aligned with what I want to do. And it's like recently I've said no to a lot of things because it's like no, I really can't be spending effort on this random like one-off project right now that it's going to take a lot of time, but it's taking the time of something else that is more in line with like the vision I see for my future. And I think there's a bit of a balance there. And I feel like the beginner's mindset is something that I want to keep in mind when I feel like I'm not able to do something, or I feel like stuck or in a rut. But a lot of times it is good to not get started, and it's good to kind of like sketch things out and see it through before you're on a path that you maybe don't want to be on.
So are you going to make another purse or bag?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's something I'm excited about. There's legs behind the idea, and yes, I'm going to, is the answer to your question.
By when? Because we're going to set a SMART goal.
Oh,
specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound.
Better throw him under the bus.
No, this is how you do it. This is how you get people, this is how you get views on YouTube or clicks on podcasts. By throwing people under the bus.
Okay, so let me talk a bit more about this project in particular. So I think like a while ago, like maybe like 4 months ago, I was talking about really wanting to make a backpack, which I really wanted to do. This was actually before we moved, because I remember I was getting ready to get the supplies, and then lockdown happened and I wasn't able to go to the store, and I was trying to figure out like, could I pick it up? Anyways, eventually it got to a place where I could pick it up, and I wasn't really motivating myself to do it.
Right.
And I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, I don't really want a leather backpack. Like the prospect of the final product of this doesn't really excite me. Like I don't see myself wearing one. I honestly think a store-bought backpack would be nicer. So like, is the process of making it worth the final product? And eventually what I kind of came around to was, number one, stitching it by hand is a lot of stitching. And I don't really know if I want to do that. So
fair.
I kind of want to get a sewing machine. Maybe that's a good reason to get one, or at least a spark for getting one. Number two, full leather backpack, not my style, not very functional. Waxed canvas, on the other hand, is super classy and something that I do want to experiment with. So maybe I'll do a hybrid leather waxed canvas backpack, something that I'll actually want to use. So I feel like I'm finding a way that I want to do it. And answer to your question about the goal, let's say 6 months from now. Let's say April 2022.
Okay. April 2022. Right. I'm going to send myself a reminder email right now.
Look at you, Nancy.
To check in. Do you want to check in April? Or do you want to have a 3 months from now check in to remind you that you made this goal?
Yeah, let's do it 3 months. If it's at April, that's a little late.
Yeah, my question was going to be, why does it have to be leather? But then you change.
Yeah, I think it in fact shouldn't. And like I think listening to that Garage Avenger episode with JJ Leathercraft was like super inspiring. But also like that was his story. Like that's what he was passionate about. And I think and I would encourage everyone to like listen to that episode and then go look at the backpack he made, because you can see like how committed he was to this project in the final product. Like it's a really high quality of work. He was still a beginner when he did it, so it's not like the most polished thing, but it's like it was clearly a lot of work, and his passion for it made it worth it.
So I'm going to put this as the part of the beginner's mindset, I think, is being like driven to do more work than is required. Like
for sure.
On first project, first time I'm doing something, I'm willing to do 10 times the amount of work because I'm learning, right? Like with air quotes. But for some reason, I'm willing to do that. And I think on the second one, I go, well, I can't do that much work again. I've realized how much work it is. Why am I okay with doing all the work the first time? And the second time, why is it like such a problem of doing? If I liked the process, I clearly want to do it again. I liked whatever the final product was, depending on whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like when I look through all of that, I go, I shouldn't have a problem doing this again. What's the psychological thing there, Morley? What's wrong with me?
Well, I think you kind of hit it on the head there, where it's like we kind of all accept that when you're learning, it's going to take time, and we're not worried about efficiency when you're doing something for the first time. But maybe it's something about our culture where it's like once you start feeling like you're getting good at something, you feel like you have to be like efficient at it. And I feel like we all start doing this like mental accounting, which is like, how much could I sell this for? How much time am I spending on it? What's my hourly rate? Even if like you're not really planning on selling it. Right. You just start being a little more, mathematical about it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but
it's the diminishing returns because I'm not learning. What else could I, even if I'm not going to sell it, it's what else could I learn? Because if I take that, I'm going to learn a new skill by doing something completely different. I'm learning so much more instead of refining. I don't know. I think I'm broken, but I think we've gone over that before.
We're all broken, Grant. Everyone's broken.
Yeah, fair.
What about you guys? Is there a project or something that like you feel like you're not able to start or like really commit to? And is it because, you don't have the beginner mindset around it? It's because you have a
yeah.
What is it?
Well, I talked about it a while ago about this dog crate that I was making. I still have like not touched it in like 4 months. It's just sitting in my garage taking up space. But I don't know, like it was a cross between like losing motivation and laziness. Like I've been going through some stuff like we've talked about before, but then also like I just don't know. Like I've lost interest in it now.
It's also hard when you've put something aside and then you're not as excited about it anymore.
I think it's just it's also not coming up as well as I wanted it to. Like painting all the doors and stuff, like it just doesn't look as flawless as it should, which is a big issue I think that a lot of people have and that I'm having at the moment, is that like not everything has to look perfect, but in my mind it does. Like we talked about with the tradies and stuff, like you make a commission for someone, they're not going to notice a little flaw, but we see it because we're the ones that made it. I've made stuff for people in the past and I'm like, oh, like they come pick it up and I'm like, oh, like I'm really happy with it except for this one thing. And I'm like, if I never pointed it out, they wouldn't have seen. Sorry.
I think that's something that if you have a beginner's mindset, you're not worried about it anymore. So I think the problem is it's not a beginner's mindset for you because you don't have it for that project. Because I think in that project, you think you should do better than you're doing.
Yeah.
If anything, it harkens back to the taste gap issue in that your taste has gotten so much better. Like you're in that plateau between having the taste for your woodworking is higher than your skill, and you just need to get through a few more, and you'll get past it, and you'll get back. For me, it's this silly. We've talked about it on the project. I think like I don't know, a long time ago. I think we had a brainstorming about building a little like playground structure for Fletcher, and I guess I have the same. It's not a beginner mindset. It's the problem is like I've never built a playground structure before, so I should be able to just go right into it. But I worry, like I overthink it. If anything, I think beginner's mindset is like you don't overthink something; you just build it, right? And I think
that's a good point.
When you're out of that beginner's mindset, you've started overthinking things. So this playset, I think it. I worry too much about like safety and like expandability and all these other things that I shouldn't worry about.
So if I was building a play structure, I feel like it'd be a great opportunity to do something like super unconventional, because this is something I always think about when I'm thinking about building something. It's like it feels like there's more of a reason to build it if I can't buy it the way that I want to make it.
Right.
That's always it. So if you do it in a way that's like you could never buy, then it's maybe there's less of a barrier there because like there's not really a failure criteria. Like if it's a pile of logs, that's going to be fun to play on no matter what.
I guess maybe it's like a problem of there's too much opportunity there. There's too many options. I could make it look like a pirate boat. I could make it look like a dinosaur. I could make it look like a log cabin. I could just make it look like a deck suspended in the air, which is like the bare bones thing that it could be. That's the one you buy at the store, is a deck suspended in the air, right? And for some reason I go like, I've had this slide for 2 years. All I got to do is build a deck suspended in the air, and later, if I change my mind, I can redo it and build that pirate ship, right?
Yeah.
And I think I got to just do it.
Seems like you just haven't found your inspiration yet.
Right.
Yeah. You're not happy with something basic. You want to be inspired enough to make something that you're going to be happy with now.
By the time I get inspired, he's going to be too old.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. All right, Grant, because time's a ticking. Let's make a smart goal. So number one, are you going first?
The tables have turned.
Are you going to build a play structure for Fletcher? Because we have to first establish if you're committed that you want to do
it. It may not just be for Fletcher, because there's obviously going to be another kid. So yes, I will.
Okay. When are you going to build it by?
I want to say, so I'm going to give like a really long date out there because I can't do it in the
Fletcher's still really young. Yeah. I mean, he's got lots of years left to play in a play structure.
Right. And I can't do it in the winter.
Okay.
Right? Like, it's going to be in my backyard. You can't dig and stuff, and you can't, I don't know, whatever. I can't do it in the winter. I'm going to put that out there. So I'm going to put this in June 2022.
Oh, okay. That's pretty soon.
Yeah, that's not. I was expecting longer than that.
So summer 2022, that's going to be your big project, is building this play structure.
I want it done before that, but yeah. I'm going to be off work until July. Yeah. So, like, obviously I'm going to have to work with Flet. Like, I'm going to be taking care of, my sons and whatever, my wife. But there's going to be 2 adults at home and 2 kids at home for 7 months. I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to work out some sort of schedule that every once in a while I might be able to get out in the garage and do something. So, and by June, I hope that schedule will have been worked out.
July's going to be hell. Being so used to you're both being home all the time. Like, yeah, it's going to be, it's going to be hard. So you're going to send yourself an email or what?
No, you guys have to follow up.
I
Now
don't
it's
know
on
how
you.
to do that.
We gotta let's do it on the first day of spring, because I mean it's probably not actually going to be spring like weather then, but that's a good symbolic
So
time.
what's that?
So I'll put a reminder March 21st or 22nd. So
Okay.
remind Grant.
That's a good one
about
because at that point, that's a good point that I'll need to order materials and draw up the plans and whatever I'm going to do.
I'm going to counter that and say by the end of March, I want a idea of what it's going to be. As in, like a little, like a drawn sketch or something.
Well, if we remind him on March 22nd, that gives him a week to finalize his idea. I think that's enough time.
Yeah.
Okay. I can build it in a weekend, no matter what it is, if I'm motivated.
So here's a little just like nugget of inspiration. Take it or leave it. So there's an urban forestry company here in Toronto called Just Be Woodsy, and so they buy up logs that are cut down across the city, and they do a bunch of different stuff with them. Oh no, I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry, I didn't have time to mute. And one of the things they sell is they buy giant old growth logs that have fallen down. They're not cutting down old growth trees that have rotted out in the middle, and they hollow out the middle and they sell them as play logs. So people buy them for playgrounds. So they're like tunnels that kids can go through.
They're $900. So I'm going to pass.
I'm not saying you should buy one. I'm saying that you could use that as inspiration for an element of your playground.
I do know some, actually, there's a few different people that I know in Ottawa that cut down trees that I follow on Instagram. So I'll have to connect with them to see if they get any logs like this. And also, if they're not going to charge me $900 for it. P.S. I almost lost our tag for the episode.
We always swear.
Because that's a stupid price.
It's big, a lot of wood.
That's a
lot of years into making that tree.
That's a fucking lot of wood. Yeah.
All right. Wow. It's already
okay. I'm sorry. Just Be Woodsy sounds like they're charging a lot of money. Maybe this is how much it costs, but I don't know.
So I've been to their facilities. They have a massive vacuum kiln. They have to pick them up in a big truck. It's a lot of labor and it's a lot of material.
With the $900 thing, I get that.
Yeah,
I'm talking. There's $99.99, so $100 play block.
What the fuck?
It is literally just squares of wood.
They're not even clean.
I will say it depends on your market. There's a lot of wealthy people in Toronto who are willing to buy things like that.
Mate, they've literally gone through a scrap bin and just made up a big pile of wood and said, here's some play blocks.
Right, I've got lots of those. I've already got those. So, good to go. All right, let's continue on whatever Morley was trying to transition into things that are spiffing.
Wrong podcast, but okay.
$10 for a stick. A literal stick.
It is $10 for a literal stick.
What the fuck?
I'm going to say...
We're in the wrong business.
I'm going to say they're good guys, and there's a story behind everything they sell, and I wouldn't be so quick to judge. Okay. What I want to...
No, I think I don't have a problem. Okay. I just want to put it out there because in case they do listen somehow, I'm sure it's fine. And I actually think there's enough yuppies in Toronto who will pay $10 for a stick or $100 for a board. I get it. I just look at it and just go like, I couldn't do that. Like, I guess I have a problem with I undercharge for everything. So maybe that's the problem. I should go around collecting sticks and charge.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, if I don't, when people charge a lot for something, I feel like a good reaction. I don't want to put a value judgment on this. I'm like, yeah, make that money. That's awesome that you're getting that price for that thing, because that means that someone who created something is making, a good living based on it, and people are willing to pay for it. So all the power to all the parties involved. Anyways. My Clampmendation for this week. Really good show that Eden and I just started. Sex Education. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, I love Sex Education. We finished it.
Oh, it's
such
so
a good show.
So it's the premise is it's a son of a sex therapist. He's in high school, and
it's so confusing.
Yeah, he starts basically giving sex therapy to his classmates, and it's really good. There's a very similar movie that's about a kid who starts like he becomes like a psychiatrist in school, and he starts like selling drugs to kids, but like trying to be a psychiatrist, not just a drug dealer. I can't remember what the movie's called, but it's a very similar kind of premise. Yeah, it's super good. It's like really like sweet and funny, cool, like coming of age story. And yeah, really enjoying it. Would highly recommend it.
It's like a teenage romance movie as well. Sort of, yeah. I don't know. There's lots of different stories in one sort of thing, but it's really weird because they all have like new technology, but it's like set in the 70s or like they literally all wear 70s attire, like 70s cars, and everything, but they have mobile phones and
that's true.
Internet, and it's really weird. But I read online, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there is a reason for that. Like the director, it's a throwback to something.
Huh.
So yeah, if you Google it, like, because there's been lots of questions on it, you'll see what I'm talking about.
So if I Google sex education and I make sure to turn the safe search off, I'll have a good night. Is this what's happening?
I'm pretty sure the first thing it'll come up, no matter what you search for sex education, will be that show.
I'm guessing it won't, but
I think the best case. I think the funnest night you'll have is if you find that show. I think you might also find something that like is more anatomical. And I don't know if that's your idea of a good time, but it's.
I was just trying to be educational.
I know. All right. What about who's next?
Great.
So my Clampmendation this week is this young lady that is from Montreal who goes by the name, and it's like a French name for cabinet maker, and then her name is Eloise, and it's Ebonisteri Eloise. I don't know. I can't say it. But she made this really cool dead blow mallet. But she takes it to another level because it's got fluid dynamics tied into it. And it's a really cool looking mallet. And she does like tests that show why having fluid is better. And she basically takes an RC car and takes the shocks off of it and shows that's why this works so well. And I don't know. I like that. I used to be in RC cars. I really like, she has a good sense of humor. She plays classical music in her videos to apparently fight the techno music that's in all the rest of the woodworking videos, which one day I'd like to have her on to ask where all this techno music she's seeing on these. I'm like, if anything, there's way too much rock music. But anyway, she likes playing a classical music, and she's making some great videos, and you could tell that she has a very well thought out process for designing things. She has a really cool toolbox she's designed and other things. Anyway, someone on the Fools with Tools group posted up her video, and then I watched a bunch of like half of her channel. And she's Canadian, so boom, there you go.
That sounds super interesting.
That word is ebonisteri, just so you know.
Ebonisteri. That's so much easier to say. I've never heard it before.
Yeah,
I've never seen it before. And it looked French to me. So I was trying to pronounce it like with a French accent, and I was like, I don't know. My mouth doesn't work that way. I know the government of Canada thinks I'm bilingual, but I'm not.
Well, my Clampmendation is a channel that I also can't pronounce. Quasi is the channel name. Right. Yeah. So this gentleman is, I don't know what he does for an occupation, but he works on a lot of film and TV shows, editing color, like all the color stuff. But he uses the same program as me, which is DaVinci Resolve, which is what a lot of like TV stations and all that use. And he does tutorials on how to do it, how to get like certain colors, like how to get the Marvel color, how to get like the color from Squid Games and all that sort of stuff, and how to edit all that. He has an insane setup. I sent you guys through a link for his Instagram with like his setup, and like it's insane. But yeah, very informative like tutorials for DaVinci Resolve. color grading and all that sort of stuff, which is cool. He does more than just color grading. There's some tutorials in there and on some other techniques and stuff, but he works a lot with the color. I think he's just like a color grader for like TV and movies. So,
cool.
Pretty cool.
The Quazman on Instagram.
Quazman, that's right. I found him through Instagram Reels.
Whoa.
Wow. Who just donked their mic?
That was me. Do you really need to ask that question?
All right. Well. I want to give a thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon, especially Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, who is our F-Clamp level supporter. Everyone who supports us gets a handmade leather keychain. I just made Andrew Zito, who is our newest patron. And I didn't make Andrew. I made his keychain. I didn't do the apostrophe S at the end of that. And they also get access to the before and after show, which is just more of fun and sometimes even more fun. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to patreon.com/clamp. And Adam, do you have a word of the week this week?
I do. It's more of a what's the word?
Like idiomatic expression?
A metaphor?
Metaphor? I don't know. Anyway, it's two words. It's Ken Oath.
So KEN space OAF.
That's it.
See, it makes me think of like a Karen. Like a Ken Oaf is like the male equivalent of a Karen. Is it Ken Oaf like a bad dad? Like
is it a person, place, or thing?
No.
Or is it a descriptor? So it's an adjective? No. What? What is it?
It's a verb? It's a response to a question. Many questions. Okay. I'm going to use it in a sentence.
Okay.
I'm going to be playing two people here. Are you going to go watch the Kangaroos this afternoon? Ken Oath.
So it's either like no way or hell yeah.
Pretty much. It's short for fucking oath.
What does fucking oath mean?
Yeah.
Pretty much what you just said.
Like which one? Hell yeah or hell no? Is it yes
hell yeah?
No.
Hell yeah. Sorry.
Okay, well, no, because Australians go like no, yeah, ha, yeah, no, yeah, ha, yeah, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nah, and nah, yeah. We don't, you guys think that's all the same, right? What's the difference between nah, yeah, and yeah, nah?
Well, yeah, nah, and nah, yeah are different.
Well, so which one is affirmative and which one is negative?
Right.
That's for you to work out.
Oh. All right, next time.
Well, that's another Australian word of the week.
Even the word oath you wouldn't get, like.
No.
I feel like it's one of those things that I've heard people say, but no.
Yeah. It's like pretty much like affirmative, like it's like definitely going to happen sort of thing. Like
I've taken an oath to this. I have promised by taking an oath to that this will happen.
Pretty much.
That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. So Grant, you always say you want to thank TF Turning for the use of our theme song. That's what you say. And that's what they say.
I wonder where I got that.
That's what they say in the Bim Bam.
Yes.
And it doesn't make any sense in either.
I know. Well, no, it does.
Every time, for the use of our theme song?
Right.
That doesn't make grammatical sense.
No, because TF Turning allows us to use our theme song. He could take it away any day.
He made it.
Oh, okay. It's very awkward sounding.
I know.
It's just funny because whenever you said that, I was like, why does he say it like that? And then I listened to my band and I'm like, that's why he says it like that.
Yeah.
I wonder if they know that it sounds weird or it's just how they say it. Okay.
They know.
So thanks, TF Turning, for allowing us to use the song that you composed for our theme music. That's it. If you want to look at our thumbnails, you can see it on Instagram at Clampcast or something like that. Maybe the Clampcast.
No, we changed it. We changed it. What did we? Oh, I changed it.
Oh, did we
Clampstagram. Okay,
Clampstagram on Instagram.
That's right.
Oh wow!
We also have a
change it.
YouTube.
That's awesome. We have a YouTube channel too.
That's ClampTube.
ClampTube.
And ClampBook is Facebook.
Yeah, the other two don't matter as much. It's mostly
we actually need to double down and rename them all these. Bye.
Okay.
See you.
Goodbye.
Just whips out Cards Against Humanity with his 3.5-year-old.